The Science of Mind is an incredible guide to how we live our lives in this world of universal laws and, of course, the thing we call God and all of those questions that we ask about life and how we make ourselves happy. This book changed my life, completely changed my life in one single solitary day. So today, this morning, I'm going to be up here with it like a Baptist minister in the Bible. And of course, we don't look at this as a Bible, but we look at it as a tool. The reason it changed my life so drastically the day that I picked it up is because I wanted change in my life. I wanted to be free of many, many things that I had either consciously or unconsciously created in my life. And Ernest Holmes starts out the book, even before the text, even before the table of contents, before anything is said, he says this: these lessons are dedicated to that truth which frees man from himself and sets him on the pathway of a new experience, which enables him to see through the mist to the eternal and changeless reality. Even before he starts the text, he brings up freedom. So what we're all looking for, all of us, we want some kind of freedom. Freedom from financial woes, freedom from, being hurt all the time, freedom from seeming as though the world is crashing in on us all the time, all the problems that we want to be free. We want to be free. In the actual text, when he does start it, he doesn't even get through to the second paragraph. And he said the seed of freedom must be planted in the innermost being of man. But like the prodigal son, man must make the great discovery for himself. We are free. The problem is that we don't know how to use the powers that we're given. We don't understand how we use them. And that's what this book is all about. This book teaches us about universal laws, universal principles, and how we create our lives, how we live and move within spirit. He goes on to say the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. So why does it seem so much like that we don't have freedom? Why does it seem so much of the time that we are chained to all sorts of things that we don't want to be chained to? And it's because of our misuse of the laws. Now, we've all heard, change your thinking, change your life. I will be the first person to tell you that that is one of the hardest things in the world to do. It is very hard to change thinking that we have had for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years overnight. Imagine with me for a moment a glass of milk that is so full that not one more drop of milk can go into that glass. And over that glass of milk, you have an eyedropper with clear water in it. And so you drop one drop of clear water into that milk. What's going to happen to that first drop? It is not going to penetrate that glass. It's probably going to run along the edge and just keep right on going. But many, 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 many drops going into that glass of milk will eventually change that glass to where it's clear. And that's what we have to do, drop after drop after drop of returning to the truth. Every time that we feel negative about something, every time that we're talking negatively about something, every time that we're experiencing something negative, returning to the truth of who we are. Like Gene said, I can see the truth for you. Sometimes we can't see the truth for ourselves. Somebody else has to see it for us and remind us. And that's what this book is all about. It is reminding us, because we do know. We all already know. We have forgotten. We have forgotten our true being. We have forgotten that it is completely free and that it does create. We use the great law, and when I say law, I'm talking about the law of cause and effect. There are many other laws, the law of attraction, the law of forgiveness, the law of giving, the law of just on and on and on. But when we say law, we're basically talking about the law of cause and effect, because everything else is just an outpicturing of cause and effect. You just personalize it into other things. We cannot step out of the law of cause and effect. We cannot step out of that box. We are always in it because we are made in the image and the likeness of God. And therefore, we are created by nature. We are a microcosm within a macrocosm. A little circle within a big circle. Right after Ernest Holmes starts talking about freedom, he starts talking about love. Now, all of us can get some sort of an understanding of love. All of us can visualize or at least partially understand that God can be loved. But when it comes to law, that's where we start kind of wondering, how does that work? How does that work? I understand that God can love, but how does law work? How do we use the two together? And Ernest Holmes tells us very simply, it's love and law, that as long as we allow love to point the direction law, the law of cause and effect, will allow it to happen. So love points the way, and law makes the way possible. I always believed in God. I mean, there has to be something. But I thought God was for other people. Until this book. I thought that if I didn't mess with God, God wouldn't mess with me. It's true. I thought that God was for you people, the people that went to church. And because I lived my lifestyle the way that I did, I would be damned or sent to hell and thought of by the people that went to church as maybe not deserving of God's love. I found by buying this book and by reading a little bit of it that, you see, you can't live your life without messing with God. Because God is not only out there, God is in here too. Our individuality is where the outermost God and the innermost God become one God. And since we can't step out of the box of the law of cause and effect, we can't really not participate. We're always interfering with the law of cause and effect. There's an old saying, most of you have probably not heard it. If you have, great. And that saying is, if you want to sin, do it on a cloudy night. This is true. Thousands and thousands of years ago, when people still believed in gods, not just God, but in gods, they believed that the night was like a covering that the gods put over everything. Kind of like a bird cage. You know, you cover up the bird cage so the birds will go to sleep. Well, they believed that the dark blue that went over was a covering, and the stars were little peepholes. And since there was so much light on the other side, it would make little bright twinkly lights. And they thought that the gods would actually look down through those little holes and see what they were doing. So somebody said, well, if you want to sin, do it on a cloudy night. Now, thousands of years later, we find that that's not true. Through science, we find where the night comes from and where the stars are and all of that stuff that people believed back then about God or gods just simply fell through. It didn't hold true. We can believe some incredible things about things that are not so, just out of the fantasies of our minds. The science of mind and people like Ernest Holmes allow us to understand that God is in everything, that God is not a man sitting on a throne out there waiting to do something to you just because it's Thursday. That's not God. God is absolute love, absolute joy, all of the things that you can think about in life that are life-giving. You know, for us to understand what God is, we have to take a look at what God is for. First of all, God has to be for life or we wouldn't be here. Think about that. Think about evolution. God has to be for life moving forward or we would not be moving forward. The planet itself would not be moving forward. So God is for life. God is for love. God is for joy, the source of our being. I want to go back to the covering of the sky just for a moment and explain that in a different way, in a way that I understand it. I want you to imagine the brightest light that you can ever possibly imagine, many, many, many times lighter than any bright that we could make, or even brighter than the sun that's outside. I want you to just think about how bright that light is for a moment. Now, I want you to put up a wall, a dense, thick wall. And on one side of that wall, we have absolute void, nothing. We have darkness. We have zero. And on this side of that wall, we have absolute white, bright light. Now, I want you to put little holes in that wall, like pegboard, little tiny holes. That light is so bright that it shines through those little bitty tiny holes, and it makes these incredibly wonderful beams of light shining through. Those beams are you and I. We're still part of the light. We're still part of the macrocosm, of the all that there is. We are part of it. We have been individualized. On this side of the wall where we are individualized and we can see those streams of light, that is how come I can see you and you can see me. And how we can see everything else, but it still comes from the one you see. We're all from that source. Now, imagine the further away that we get from that wall, the further away that we get from that source that is our own life, the darker it seems. This is where the light can start to seem fuzzy and where darkness seems to take us all over. These are these dark experiences that we have. Our job in life, or our journey in life, through learning about ourselves and God and how we live, is to stay close to the source as possible. Stay closer to the source of love and joy and peace. Many people have to go very, very far out into that darkness before they ever make the return. But those of us who are on spiritual journeys, those of us who are willing to pick up a book and read, those of us who are willing to meditate, those of us who are willing to do our spiritual work, we are working our way back to the source to get as close to the source as possible. And by source, I mean love and joy and peace. All of those things, not some man on a mountain. So what do we do when we get to the edge? When we get to our source? Do we crawl over? No. What we do is observe and then tell those who are still in darkness what it is that we see. Because we see light. We see joy. We see peace and harmony. The science of mind teaches us that this is everywhere. It's all around us. It's not in a building. It's not on a mountain. It's in our very own hearts. And because we live in the great law of the universe, we cannot not create. You're creating right now. You may believe that just because you're sitting in the chair and doing nothing that you're not creating, and you are creating right here, right now. All of us are creating. We cannot not create. It's an incredible, wonderful journey for each of us to find out who we are, to find out what we are, to learn about the law, to learn about love and each other. We're all in this thing called life together. I want to share with you this is by Gene Houston, PhD. If I were to state the essence of the science of mind, it would be that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. The core of each human being is the original creative genius of the universe. We are, therefore, the lensing of God stuff on earth, the focalization of eternity in time. Consciously or unconsciously, we direct the flow of universal mind into form. In homier terms, the cosmic energy is started, but man guides it in his own life. This grants us tremendous power, and with it the innate responsibility to make or break our world through the extraordinary workings of our mind. Thus, the practical emphasis of the science of mind of the power of trained thought. The science of mind takes seriously the dictum of being recreated through the renewing of our minds, and not just our minds, but our bodies and souls as well. The power of second Genesis lie within us, but this means that we must agree to attune and orchestrate our thoughts and emotions toward higher purposes and creative ends. In this, we have help, for Spirit assures us that the lure of becoming is always calling the vision of what we may be. We are limited only by concept and the refusal that comes from ignorance or laziness. The science of mind gives us the permission for a new possibility, along with precise and clear directions for building a matrix of mind and manifestation. You see, you are that point. You are that point in the universe where the outermost God and the innermost God become one God. You are the point in life where you use the law that you cannot walk away from or step away from. You are that point of God. The science of mind teaches us that we use the law for greater good. The science of mind teaches us how to train our thoughts. And that's what trained mind means, is to be aware that when we are thinking negatively, to be aware that when we see something negative in our life, that came from an idea, a thought, somewhere. And that is where we begin our work. And by work, I mean to start looking at the truth. What is the truth? Negativity is not your truth. Bondage is not God ordained. But because we live and breathe and have our living within this law, we have to learn how to use it properly. And that's where the science of mind steps in. So I'd like to close with this. It's from the Awakening Word. There is a shore inside you where the tides bring in what will be. All of your tomorrows reach the edge of creation's sea. This is a sea with endless shores, a place that's never been seen, the edge of all your creations, the realm of the in-between. Here the light is still in shadow, the void contemplates the mass, spirit still choosing its clothing, the reflection not yet in the glass. This is a place without time or space, where silence is louder than sound, the nothing between the something, everything still unbound. Here the winds will blow away the things that are not you, the things that were meant for others, those cards you never drew. The waters will wash away from your heart the memories you can't forget, pictures of all those yesterdays, broken dreams that you regret. The tides will carry your courage, the fear will be washed from your face. Here, your tomorrow awaits in twilight. It's ready for your embrace. Call forth the winds of nature, be like the moon and swell the tide. Creation's sea is for you to command from the shore you have inside. There is a shore inside you where the tides bring in what will be. All of your tomorrow reach the edge of creation's sea. That's you. You are the edge of creation's sea. You draw in toward you all of your desires, all of your wants, all of your beliefs, everything that you need to be free in the world, you can have by drawing it to you.